My wife, 45F, was married to Bob, 46M, for almost a decade. They got divorced 12 years ago. There is a story behind it. Bob and my wife were college sweethearts. They got married very young and has been happy. However, tragedy struck and Bob got into an accident which led him to be paralyzed from waist down. My wife was 29 and Bob was 30 back then. My wife took care of him for 3 years. But at the end she just gave up. She told Bob that she could not do this anymore. She knows she sounds selfish but she always wanted kids, but Bob cannot have children after the accident. She wanted to get a divorce but promised him that she will always be there for him. She just wants to be selfish for once. Bob, although he was upset, but he understood. They split amicably. My wife stood by her promise and still visited Bob. She was still a part-time caretaker for him before she met me. I, 40M, meet her 2 years after her divorce. While we were dating, she made her situation with Bob clear that she will continue to see him. I know a lot of guys would be skeptical about this. But I just loved her the moment I saw her. Her kindness and compassion towards others is what drew me towards her. After we became official, she only went to see Bob once a week. Sometimes even twice. I did not mind then. In fact, I liked her ex very much. He didn't treat me like I was the other man. He was always welcoming towards me and even showed me his library. I always felt bad for what happened to him. He was a great man and life has just betrayed him. When we got married, I could still see the sadness in his eyes, although there was mix of emotions from him. I always felt that Bob never stopped loving my wife, and to some degree my wife still has feelings for him. I know she loves me a lot. She has always treated me like I'm her king and always showed her love to me. Seriously, I am really lucky to have her in my life. Together we have 2 children, 7M, 5F. My kids are also close with Bob. Everything was fine until few months ago, we got the news that Bob has cancer. It was at the last stage and he might not even survive a full year, but there is still possibility. The news really shattered my wife. She had stopped eating properly and being her usual cheerful self. I understand it. But here is a part where I am a little uncomfortable with. She now visits him very often. Most of the time I will be there with her. And then few weeks after the discovery she told me she wants to shift in his house. She told me that Bob feels lonely and his siblings do not care about him since his accident. And it will be better if she would just stay with him. I objected. We had an argument and reached a compromise that we are both going to stay. So I've been staying at Bob's house for 2 weeks now. 4 days ago, we were all having dinner and after we were finished I decided to do the dishes. My wife and Bob were chatting. The conversation were like this. Bob, I really missed this. I miss talking to you like the good times. My wife, me too. Remember one time we talked so much that we were late for work the next day? It wasn't even important. Bob, what happened to us, Lily? I mean, we were something. People would use us as an example. I miss you a lot. Never thought that when I was dying you wouldn't be my wife anymore. My wife, I know. At one point I thought that too. But life had other plans. I mean, I love you, but I love my family more. It was not the same after your accident. It is as if they forgot that I was in the kitchen and listening to their conversation. My wife was normal after that. We went to bed and kissed each other goodnight. Between this, she wanted to make love to me, but I just rejected her. I don't know how to feel about all of this. I trust my wife. I know she is a strong woman with good morals. She will never cheat on me. I know she is just sympathetic towards Bob because their relationship was beyond just exes. They are best friends. I feel like an intruder between them. And I think no matter what my opinion is about all of this, I will always be the bad guy. Relevant comments. First comment, you're not the bad guy in a form, know that. You need to talk to your wife about what you heard. Then you need to get to counseling with her and possibly Bob. Cause when Bob does pass you want to have everything settled, cause she may start saying shit like, I lost the most important man to me, and then you're going to be severely pushed over the edge. OP therapy sounds good. I guess I knew deep down this will come. Comment 2, this story makes me sad for all of you. It's understandable, she's been upfront about this with you. She loves him and feels guilty she couldn't stay with him and have the life she wanted. It's very sad. You would not have your wife if not for his accident. I wouldn't like this arrangement, it would be very uncomfortable. But you did sign up for this. How are your kids processing all of this? OP, they are mostly sad. Bob is getting weaker every second. They don't know he will be dying. But they are happy to see Bob. Comment 3, this is difficult for many reasons. Reading your post, or almost sounds like you want to be jealous, but I doubt that's really it. If it were jealousy, I feel that you would have had problems long ago. Have you considered that you're grieving for Bob, the man you called a friend? Is it easier to be upset or hurt at your wife than to face his demise? It doesn't sound like there is anything for you to worry about from this relationship itself. It's just difficult emotionally, and that's understandable. You really should see a therapist to help you work through your emotions so you can be there to support your wife and children when he passes. It won't be helpful if you're still suppressing both the hurt of knowing your wife loves someone else and the loss of a friend. OP, I'm devastated that I am losing a dear friend of mine. I mean, Bob never ever tried to hurt me or made me feel like a third man or a man who came between him and my wife. In 2020, I went into a deep depression due to the stress of losing my job in COVID. Bob, even though he was disabled, helped me and motivated me to keep going. He is a really good guy. Maybe you are right, I'm still in a mix of emotions. Update. Alright. I took some of the advice that you guys gave me. Although I was disappointed to see so many emotional people calling me and my wife names without even trying to understand the situation. This will be a long one. Before I give an update, I want to make few things clear. My wife is awful because she abandoned her husband. No, I disagree with that. There is a between terminating a marriage and abandoning. She didn't abandon Bob. She was right by his side. She was just not his wife. I can understand why. She was 29 when this happened. At 29, people are still starting their lives. But her life and her husband's life ended there. You expect her to give up her life, her hopes and dreams? And what then? Resent Bob for the rest of her life? Caretaking can be exhausting. She was emotionally, physically, and financially drained while she was taking care of Bob. Would you have still expected her to give up her life if this happened when she was 21? It's not like she didn't try. They went to therapy and did counseling, but there was no romance, no intimacy. They just grew apart because they both had different dreams. Despite all of that, she was still in his life. She still took care of him. She could have disappeared after her divorce, but she didn't. That's what you call abandonment? Also, the reason why I didn't give all the details was because this was not about her old marriage. But now I'm making it clear because people are assuming things. I know most of your things are black and white. But from a logical perspective, I don't think she is wrong. My wife and Bob are having an emotional affair. Also, no. People who have affairs are secretive. My wife was never like that. She was always upfront and honest about her relationship with Bob. And how she would still want to care about him. I do not think there is any affair. Just because she said she loves him, so what? She says I love you to her kids, her friends, and even my mother. That doesn't mean she is having an affair with all of them. She has kept a boundary between Bob and her. She doesn't love him romantically, but like a friend or a family. She doesn't have her own family. She has been in NC with her abusive family since she was 18. Bob was the only family she has ever known. If my wife wanted kids, why didn't she just adopt or do IVF? Like I said in my previous post, she was financially drained. IVF costs a lot here, and adoption with a disabled parent is hard. The agencies hesitate to give a child when one parent is not functional. Then again, they would still need money. My wife wanted children of her own. And if they went to either of the routes, she would have been the one taking care of the baby most of the time along with her husband. Bob almost went broke during all the caretaking. It wasn't until a few years ago he started a remote job that allowed him to stay at home and earn. My wife will leave me if the same thing happened to me. I doubt it. But even if she does, I would understand it. We talked about this before getting married. That if we have tried every possible option, then one of us can divorce. I do not want to be a burden on my own wife. And? We are both in our 40s. We have pretty much accomplished every goal in life. So if tragedy does strike, then we are prepared. Bob loves my wife, he could. But there's not much I can do about it. I mean, I cannot order him to stop loving. But he does have some feelings for her. Whether it's limerence or not, I do not know. Though Bob was in a long-term relationship for 5 years with a girl, I do not think his love for my wife is the same as romantic love. What about my kids? Our kids are here for a while and they live with their grandmother. I do not see why people are acting like we abandoned our kids. Our kids love Bob. They do not know Bob is my wife's ex-husband. They only know that Bob is my wife's friend. They are not mature enough to understand it. Now on to the update. I took your advice. I just wanted to do the talk when she wasn't stressed. I texted my wife to meet us in our house, not Bob's. I ordered her favorite food and set up the table. When she arrived, she was surprised to see the setup, and I just told her since she has been stressed lately I wanted to do something good for her. I called my mother. The kids are with her. Bob is staying at the hospital today, so he is fine too. And she can relax. She was happy and thanked me. We talked about our life and she vented about her job and everything that's been going on. Then I dropped the bomb about her conversation with Bob. I told her about the conversation she was having with Bob and how it made me feel. Well, I like Bob and I know she loves me too, but I cannot help but imagine her wanting to be with him. And it's really like a stab. Though I do appreciate her wanting to help Bob, I want to enforce boundaries. I cannot live forever in her ex's house. We have our own house. She needs to think about our kids too. I feel like day by day I'm losing her. This is just my concern and not insecurity. I expected her to flip out and become defensive, but she just cried a lot. She said that she didn't mean to hurt me. She knows she went too far with wanting to stay with Bob. She says she doesn't want Bob to feel alone. That's why she proposed it. And she feels sorry for not listening. She didn't mean to hurt me. She has been thinking about the living situation. I told her it's not enough. I wanted us to talk to a therapist. This whole thing is just a burden on me. She got scared and said, "Why? Nothing's wrong with us." I told her I want to do this. Just make sure we are on the same page and there are no hard feelings on either side. Then I asked her if she still wishes to be with Bob. Because if he didn't have the accident they would still be together. She told me she has wasted time thinking about, what if? She knows we'd probably never meet, or she and Bob could have divorced for a different reason. The thing is, she doesn't want to think about it. What happened just happened. She loves me and doesn't want to be with Bob. Bob has a place in her heart as a friend and a family. When she said she loves Bob doesn't mean she is in love with him. She hasn't thought about him in a romantic way since their divorce. The only reason she stuck with Bob was because they promised to each other no matter what happens they will be with each other even as a friend. She proposed that we move back home and only stay one day a week in Bob's house. She might do occasional visits when it is needed. I agreed, but I still insisted on going to therapy. She agreed to it. We have yet to tell Bob about the news. But I'm sure he will understand. And before you ask, yes, Bob has a full-time nurse, he has family, but they hardly ever visit him. I'll probably not make an update again. And I'm done. No matter how much I try to explain it to you guys, you would only stick to seeing things either black or white. Apparently in the Reddit world, two exes remaining good friends is considered an emotional affair. They don't need context to understand things. I'm also very much drained emotionally. Bob is also my friend. Seeing him getting weak every day just makes me feel hopeless too. Relevant comments. Comment 1: I am glad you had that conversation with her, I am rooting for you. And yes, therapy. I always feel like therapy is like an oil change, it is maintenance. If you don't do it you're screwed, but if you keep at it you'll be running smoothly. I have a few therapists in my family, so maybe their influence. She may need individual therapy too, there is a lot to unpack for her. OP yes. We talked about that. Sorry, I forgot to mention that in my post. I told her that she needs to face the ugly reality that Bob might not be in our lives. She needs to prepare for that. She needs therapy for herself to navigate those feelings. She agreed to that. Comment 2: as much as people would like to vilify the two of you, you are both admirably navigating a sea of gray and doing the best you can. I'm disappointed by this sub's inability to do nuance. Marriage is nuanced. Marriage requires comfort with gray areas. Marriage requires constant give and take. Thank you for sharing with us. OP yup. I think people are way too self-righteous to think about any other possible solution. Yes, morally she should have stayed with her ex and spent the rest of her life taking care of him, no matter how emotionally draining it is. But practically it makes no sense. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to connect with each other in the comments below. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and I'll catch you in the next video. Corner Stories signing off.